very well grab their wheels, but they move like this, and their arm strength can get enormous, and they're quadriplegics. It's very, someone who can't pick up a fork can have biceps like this. And they play in this sport, and they got very famous. The movie won an Oscar as the best documentary. So that brought brought quadriplegics, who people thought were just people stuck in their apartments, never moving, brought that into form. So now that we know the difference, I'm going to zip through here. Okay, this is one that surprises everyone. I was talking about that walking is very low. The number one issue for people with spinal cord injuries is sexual function. Okay? This is why I started the Christopher Reeve Foundation. They did a study, a survey of all their members, if you want to call them. It's like, Facebook people. And these are the results of their survey. So you can't say it's scientific because there's probably a lot of people that are around the Christopher Reeve Foundation. But of that, the people that were involved, this was their number one thing, was sexual function. And this is what happens with a spinal cord injury. In one day, I went from a strong athlete in training with no fears to someone who I could not urinate by myself, I could not have a bowel movement by myself, and my sexual function was destroyed. Okay? So the fact that I couldn't walk I was like, I'll get to that later. I'll get to that later. What about these three things that are the most important things? Sexual function, bowel function, bladder function. You have to relearn that, right? So the fact that I couldn't walk was just, I'll figure that walking part out later. I need to go to the bathroom, right? And this really scared me because the doctor came up to me and he showed me a bag that didn't look like this, but something. They were actually very sterile and in long paper coverings, but showed me these. Do you know what these are? These are catheters. Okay? And so he told me, for the rest of my life, every time I urinate, I have to take a catheter out, and I have to lube it up. Hey, my friend!
I'm not recording.
No, if I get hit by a car, they would have a spinal cord. They're just interested. So this is what I use to urinate. I have to take this, lube it with this, and it goes into my urethra, and I urinate into a bottle. Okay? The problem with this, and it works, it's very intrusive. It works, it functions, okay? The problem with this is, what can you see the potential problem like this?
Infection.
Ba-ding! Especially if you live in a country like Ghana, where you have lots of, the roads are not clean. There's there's animals all over the place. So that means that also I won't pull it out to you, but I've got to carry wipes. I've got to carry hand sanitizer. I don't want to get an infection because does anyone know what happens after with not even a fairly serious, but a fairly routine bladder infection with the spinal cord patient? You're incontinent. Okay, you're incontinent. It's not just that you have an irritation or you have to go to the bathroom all the time. You're incontinent, which means you have wet pants all the time, and it stinks. And for the first, I'm going to say first 5 years, I had this problem a lot. This problem was happening to me all the time, and so what happens? You can do things. You can put diapers on, right? So I used to have to wear a diaper for a while because I thought I had permanent incontinence for a while. What this does to your psyche is it makes you suicidal. I could jump around and say, oh, you get a little upset and stuff. It's not that way. Can you imagine yourself walking around now with urine in your pants all the time? Okay? It makes, and I wasn't 80 years old with a faulty bladder. I was young, right? I was still in the prime of my life, and this was happening to me. Also, the bladder issue, or the bowel issues, in the beginning, I've changed now. In the beginning, I used to have to take a suppository and sit on the toilet for 1 hour a day. The suppository is a Dopalax suppository, and that will loosen up everything in your bowel. And then you just wait, and then you have to take gloves, and they call it digital stim, which I really hate that term, but that's another thing I have to travel with all the time. If I reach down further in my bag, I'm always traveling with surgical gloves. Okay? At the beginning, and for some spinal cord patients, this lasts their whole life. For the beginning, you take this Dopalax suppository, you sit on the toilet, and then you have to put the glove on, and you have to go in and actually digital stim, go in the rectum, and circle around your rectum until feces falls out. Okay? This also is very dehumanizing, right? So when all this stuff happens at such a young age, depression sets in. It's inevitable. It's inevitable. Anyone who says they're not depressed is lying to you. So, and spinal cord patients, we're all like, oh, really optimistic, positive people. But that's after we've gone through this period of very, very deep depression. All that can happen, the only way to get through this, there's no magical pill you take that says now your depression's gone. You're going to be a happy spinal cord person as opposed to someone like me the first 5 years of my injury where I was just depressed all the time. You have to do your best to maintain your hygiene. So it's very, very important that you keep the hands are clean, the catheters are clean. It's very hard to keep catheters clean in a developing nation. I lived in India for quite a long time, and now I'm doing the same procedure here in Ghana. I travel with chlorine bleach tablets, and I take my catheters, I store them, and at the end of, it depends on now I'm traveling quite a bit, so I have to be very careful about this, but I take a bucket, I put my catheters in a bucket, take bottled water, never water from the tap, right? Never water from the tap. Bottle of water, I empty a bottle of water in, I throw my chlorine tablets in there, and I keep my catheters soaking in chlorine, and that kills everything. Now I'm going to be traveling here for about 5 days. I just make sure I have enough clean ones with me. And because it'll be very difficult for me to clean my catheters while I'm traveling. In America, I don't have this problem. In America, I can go to a bathroom at a McDonald's because the water's clean and I can just soap and rinse them off and they're good to go. You find this is very funny. When I travel in the United States, I look for the fast food restaurants. And it's not because I want to eat there, it's because I know at every fast food restaurant in the United States, there's an accessible bathroom. Which means that I can get onto the toilet. If I have an accident, I've had to do this. Because the trick with the Dopalax suppository, it kind of works, it kind of doesn't. Sometimes you get a result, sometimes you don't. Sometimes you get a result 5 hours after. Okay? And this has happened to me. I've been, I was working out, and I was just rolling in my chair, and all of a sudden I had a major fecal event going on in my pants, right? I cracked my chair something furious, right? And I was like, what can I do? What am I going to do here? And what I did is I found the McDonald's that was close. In my bag with me right now, I have enough material. I've got things I can clean up with. I've got a diaper. I've got all sorts of things so I can clean myself up wherever I am. This has happened to me on airplanes. Okay, this has happened to me on buses. This has happened to me when I was dancing with someone sitting on my lap. Okay? So, right? Thankfully, this woman was very, very forgiving, and she did not receive any of the product, we'll say. But, these incidents are going to happen to someone with a spinal cord injury. No no one, 0% goes through their life as a spinal cord patient, or whatever we call ourselves. We're not patients anymore. But no one goes through their lives without experiencing these things. So as you can see, this will lead to depression. Okay? Depression is a huge part of the spinal cord recovery. I had one woman, this was the best advice I ever had from a psychiatrist. I did my rehab at University of Northwestern University in Chicago, which is where my brother also did his residency. And a psychiatrist, woman, at this point it was maybe 1 month after I'd broken my back. And I was so depressed. If there was a gun next to me, I was going to take it. And that is not. If there was a gun next to me, I would have taken it and shot my head off. I was that depressed. And occasionally, someone would come and visit, and then they'd talk to me, and I would feel a little bit better, and then I'd be like, okay, I feel a little bit better. And then something would happen, like, I still had chronic stomach pain. Something really bad would happen, I'd be like, no, give me the gun, give me the gun, give me the gun. And then what happened to really turn me around was my nieces and nephews.